Hello and welcome. I'm Rashan Gidwani and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the headlines for this hour. President Trump has informed the British government that the United States does not require their military assistance to secure a victory in Iran. The statement signals a unilateralist approach to the conflict, leaving traditional allies weighing their role in regional stability. Israeli airstrikes on an eastern Lebanese town have left at least 16 people dead as the military campaign intensifies. Local authorities are struggling to clear debris and reach survivors amid the widespread destruction of residential areas. The Assembly of Experts has reached a majority consensus on a successor to the late Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei. According to reports from Mer News, while an official announcement is pending, clerics state the chosen candidate aligns with Khamenei's guidance to be hated by the enemy rather than praised by it. The Israeli military has declared it will pursue every potential successor to the late Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei. This policy aims to systematically decapitate the Iranian leadership structure to prevent the regime from regrouping. China has declared that high-level dialogue with the U.S. is vital as President Trump increases pressure on Beijing's key global partners. Officials warn that escalating trade restrictions and geopolitical maneuvering threaten to destabilize the fragile diplomatic balance between the two superpowers. A U.S. appeals court has ruled that the Trump administration cannot immediately end protected status for 350,000 Haitian migrants. The decision provides a temporary reprieve for families facing deportation as the legal battle over the program's termination continues. Canberra is currently evaluating urgent requests for assistance from multiple nations recently targeted by Iranian kinetic strikes. The Australian government is considering deploying logistical and security support to allies in the Gulf to counter the escalating regional aggression. Days after striking Iran, President Trump is hosting Latin American leaders to strengthen regional ties and counter Chinese influence. The summit focuses on securing Western Hemisphere supply chains and limiting Beijing's economic reach in the Americas. And now we have some breaking news coming in. Iran's Assembly of Experts has reportedly reached a decision on the country's next supreme leader. Members say the most suitable candidate has been approved by the majority, though the name has not yet been made public. Officials say the decision reflects a firm consensus within the body tasked with selecting the leader. Mohsen Haydari, representing Khuzestan province, confirmed the candidate was chosen with majority support. Another member, Mohammad Mehdi Bagheri, said the decision reflects the Assembly's firm opinion. Local media report says that they have carried statements confirming the selection process is complete, but the identity of the new leader remains under wraps. Listen in.
این عزیزان به جد مشغول به کار بودن و هستند و یک نظر قاطع و قاطبی که نظر اکثریت هست فراهم شده، ولی خب بالاخره تو این شرایط سخت میدونید موانعی هم هست. این کار باید با اتقان کافی، با عرض کنم دقت کافی انجام بشه که مورد مناقشه نباشه. در اینی که باید زمان از دست نره نیاز به دقت.
And now joining us to tell us more is David K. Johnson, author and journalist from New York. Sir, in your opinion, when Iran essentially has this majority vote to choose a new leader, is it even effective? We know that Israel's mission, rather, is to decapitate the new leader, and Trump essentially wants an ally that he can work with for the American interests. So is there even a purpose here for Iran to choose a new leader? What are your thoughts, sir?
Well, there would be no point in doing it unless Iran believes it's going to continue as a theocratic state. And of course, they do believe that. And Donald Trump, whose war is absolutely 100% illegal, the US Constitution only allows Congress to declare war, he has no plan for what to do. Donald, whom I've covered and known for almost 40 years, is just appallingly ignorant. If you were to ask Donald, what's the difference between a Sunni and a Shiite and why does it matter? He would go off and talk about drapes or something else because it's all a con job. He doesn't know anything. This attack by the U.S. Is part of his scheme to make sure that our attention is diverted from the files of Jeffrey Epstein, which he's been hiding more than half of, and at the same time insisting that he is not a child rapist. Well, there are sworn testimony by women that when they were 13 and 14, Donald Trump raped them. That's a lot of what this war and all this death is about, protecting Donald Trump from his past and the records that the administration he leads has possession of.
Yes, I saw that video, sir, of President Donald Trump talking about the new ballroom that's going to be worth $400 million. To what extent do you believe then that even after the war, say in a few months, in a year, when these Epstein files fully are transparent in the sense that they fully expose President Donald Trump, what then can he do to essentially restore his reputation with the American people? Or do you think in his mind, say, because you've been covering him for the last 40 years, like you just said, it's all just capitalist intentions here, that this war will essentially make him some more money in some sort of way? What are your thoughts?
Well, if the video and audio that the young women have testified was made and still pictures come out, I would hope Donald Trump's presidency cannot survive that, and that if he did not leave, which he would never do, that both Republicans and Democrats would vote to impeach and then convict upon impeachment, which takes 2/3 of the Senate. On the other hand, I have gotten emails from people and comments in my social media saying, oh, but that was long ago, and Donald has prayed to God and been given forgiveness for this. Something that goes to the absolute gullibility and malleability of many of the Americans who call themselves Christians but have no idea what's in the Bible they claim to believe in. My fundamental expectation is that absolute proof would, and it certainly should, end Trump's effectiveness as president. And I don't see any prospect that he will release them. But there are other copies elsewhere, and they haven't been sought yet by the Democrats in the House and Senate because I think that's a strategic choice.
Please stay with us, sir. We'll be right back with you. Next up, the Israeli military has confirmed that 2 of its soldiers were killed in southern Lebanon, marking the first fatalities among Israeli troops since hostilities with Hezbollah resumed last week. The army has not provided further details on the circumstances of the incident. Clashes continue along the Israel-Lebanon border amid heightened tensions following the U.S.-Israeli campaign against Iran. Hezbollah has claimed multiple attacks on Israeli military sites and northern cities, including a rocket barrage on the Misgav base described as a logistics facility. The group also said it launched sophisticated missiles at the Haifa naval base and carried out drone attacks on the northern city of Nahariya, citing these as responses to Israeli strikes on dozens of Lebanese towns and Beirut's southern suburbs. And now joining us live to tell us more is Gedalia Bloom, a Middle East affairs expert. She's joining us from Eli in Israel. Sir, in your experience, or rather, sorry, do you believe that the Pope actually can turn things around here? I know that he represents the church, and of course, the situation in the Middle East is totally divided and divisive of that. But with his comments, the Pope's comments that essentially the war in the Middle East goes against international law, do you believe that there will be any ripple effects on the ongoing conflict, sir?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. Second of all, I just got an alert that in the next couple of minutes I might have to go into shelter for Iranian ballistic missile over my head. Besides that, I'll tell you, when it comes to the Pope, I don't know so much about it, and I'll tell you, because I don't know so much about it, there's not much influence in the Middle East by the Pope at all with policy. I think that he's considered a religious figurehead that holds no political power. In fact, I think his last visit to, I believe it was Turkey, really put a big stain on his, or was it Lebanon? I'm sorry, a big stain on his reputation in the Middle East, becoming a visitor to the Lebanese government, who obviously is not very friendly right now with Israel, despite the fact that they are aligning with Israel against Hezbollah as we speak.
What goes through your mind exactly when you receive these messages and alerts? Are you okay? That's my real question.
Yeah, listen, we're very resilient here. You'll see even in the beaches of Tel Aviv, when you get an alert, they'll completely empty out. And once you get another notification saying that that's okay, it's safe, everybody goes back to the beach. And that's just kind of the way it is. I mean, we're really, where I am right now, I'm not targeted, but there are interceptions over my head. We hear them. We hear explosions. It sounds like a rumbling thunder, and that's the atmosphere. And you feel the atmospheric pressure when you're actually in a bomb shelter in my house. So it's really just about getting in there and making sure that the kids are being entertained and they're not experiencing any long-term, any trauma or fear.
Stay alert, sir. We'll be right back with you. Next up, the United Arab Emirates says it is acting in self-defense after what it called a large-scale Iranian attack involving ballistic missiles and drones. According to the UAE Foreign Ministry, more than 1,400 missiles and drones targeted infrastructure and civilian sites, causing an unspecified number of casualties. The ministry described the strikes as brutal and unjustified, calling them a serious violation of international law, the UN Charter, and UAE sovereignty. Officials stressed the country does not seek escalation or a wider conflict, but retains the right to take all necessary measures to defend its territory and citizens. Joining us now live again to tell us more is David K. Johnston, author and journalist, joining us from New York. Sir, do you believe that the UAE will go to the limits that I think in my mind, which are to entirely annihilate or obliterate Iran? What are your thoughts, please?
The UAE doesn't have the military capacity to do that, and neither with the current military assets that are there does the U.S. and Israel. That would require a huge ground assault in a country of 91 million people, and many of those who are opposed to the current awful regime in Tehran and have been rising up would no doubt turn on invaders. If there's one lesson we should have learned from the most recent wars, the ones since, say, 1960, is people will valiantly fight to defend their homeland from what they regard as invaders. So the UAE just doesn't have the military capacity to do that, doesn't even come close. And the US would have to move enormous numbers of troops, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 500,000 combat troops from the US and elsewhere, in order to do a ground invasion in Iran.
So is that when we essentially see, when all these countries, the UAE, the US, Israel, will they run out of militia? And is that when the war will stop?
The war will stop when Donald Trump decides it's in his political interest to stop it. There's a huge opposition to the war in the U.S. Even majority of Republicans in some polls oppose this illegal, unconstitutional war. And the butcher bill so far has been mostly overseas. We've only had 6 dead Americans. By the way, in Lebanon, where you mentioned the 2 dead Israeli soldiers, there are, depending on the report, somewhere between 172 and more than 400 dead residents of southern Lebanon. So the war is widening, and places like the UAE are seen by Tehran not only as being Sunni-led when Iran is Shia-led, but being allies of the U.S. and therefore fair game.
I asked you a similar question that I'm about to ask you now. Last week, I remember that we spoke. Do you believe that now with the Middle East tensions and the conflict there, that the entire world will entirely perceive that region entirely differently? What are your thoughts?
No, I mean, this will come and this will pass, however long it lasts, whether we get dragged into an endless war that goes on for years or Trump simply declares victory and moves on. And he's hinted at that. He claims that the Sunni-led governments have gone, oh, thank you, Mr. President, thank you so much, which of course they haven't done. This will be political, I suspect, at the end of the day. The Iranians have a lot of bench strength. You can cut off the head of the leader, they'll come up with another one and another one and another one. I mean, they have a whole holy city not that far from Tehran. They have a well-disciplined military. They're very effective at cyber warfare, as the U.S. government itself has acknowledged. So I don't see any major permanent change here. Now, economically, that's a different issue. China has a lot of oil reserves, but it says it needs to get resumption of shipments from the Middle East. Korea and Japan have no natural oil, and Japan, I think, has said they have about a 36-day supply. Europe was weaned off of Russian natural gas and oil because of the Ukraine invasion. It now depends on liquefied natural gas and oil from the Middle East, and those supplies can't move now.
Please stay with us, sir. We'll be right back with you. Next up, the Arab League's Secretary General Ahmed Aboul-Gheit has said that Iranian attacks on several member states were reckless, urging Tehran to reverse what he called a massive strategic mistake. Aboul-Gheit has added that the strikes cannot be justified under any pretext or excuse and repaid peace efforts by Gulf countries with treacherous rockets and drone strikes. Arab League ministerial meeting discusses Iranian attacks on sovereignty of several Arab countries. Qatar's foreign ministry has said that the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, Sultan bin Saad Al Muraiki, attended virtually an Arab League Council extraordinary session at the ministerial level. They have added that it also addressed the serious risks these actions pose to the security and stability of Arab states and the region. Aboul-Gheit has also said that Iran attacks on member states reckless. Joining us now again live is Gedalia Bloom, Middle East Affairs expert, joining us from Israel. Ellie, sir, over the weekend, Iran essentially apologized to its neighboring countries. What did you make of this apology? Essentially, the missiles and the drones were already launched. Can they come back from this in any way, shape, or form? Please.
So I just want to say, you can see the change in my environment. The alarms went off, and I came into my bomb shelter with my wife, and I think I have like 7 of 8 kids with me right now. So, and a dog. So if you hear anything from the background, I'll say this, and maybe your guests, your other guests will also agree with me. The only strategy right now for the Iranian regime is to survive. They will never be able to fight directly against Israel or the U.S. They will lose face to face. They have to fight an asymmetric war. With that being said, they're like a child who is flipping the table when they can't get their way, and they're trying to create as much chaos as possible in order that the oil prices go up, the cost of goods, that there becomes this global crisis that is going to lead the domestic population in the U.S., Israel, Europe, to put pressure on their politicians to eventually back off, because the regime's only a goal is to survive. And I think that even shooting missiles at Cyprus, using the proxies of Hezbollah, or whether it be shooting at Turkey, UAE, I think at this point right now, they're not worried about the day after, what kind of diplomatic ties that they're going to have. They just really want to survive. And I think that this is their strategy. So them apologizing for shooting a rocket at Turkey is essentially a joke. I mean, I don't think anybody really took it seriously, and I think it's just kind of their way to kind of create this kind of this doubt about what really happened.
Yes, sir. I see the background change. Please stay safe and stay alert. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Next up, U.S. President Donald Trump praised Scott Pressler for discussing the use of the filibuster to pass the Save America Act, which Trump said is supported by 88% of voters. Posting on Truth Social, Trump insisted the bill must pass immediately, take priority over all other legislation, and include voter ID and proof of citizenship. He added mail-in ballots should be restricted to the military, illness, disability, or travel, and stressed no men and women's sports or gender procedures for children. Trump warned lawmakers not to pass a watered-down version and urged them to act now. Joining us live again is David K. Johnston, author and journalist from New York. Sir, how far exactly do you believe Trump is willing to stand up for the United States of America? What exactly does America first mean to you, sir?
Well, Trump asserts that he will only act in the interest of the U.S. with no regard for international law for other countries, yet we've seen that that's not true. For example, there's credible information that the Russians have been providing targeting intelligence to the Iranians, and Trump dismissed that, which if had any other American president done that, Congress would have been in a state of absolute outrage. The SAVE Act that you were discussing is about voter registration, and it is part of Trump's effort to make sure that people who are Latino, Black, Asian, who he thinks might be Democrats, won't be able to vote, because he knows he cannot win and his party cannot win if large numbers of people turn out to vote. And by the way, I want to be very clear, Mr. Bloom, who I think is behaving very bravely in his response to this because they're under attack at the moment, is right. This is an asymmetrical war where Tehran is trying to survive with the current regime, but we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that the regime in Tehran is no worse than the one in Riyadh, the one in Bahrain, and a number of other countries. They're all run by vicious dictatorial regimes with no regard for their own people.
So essentially what you're saying is that the Save America Act that Trump is enforcing very urgently is essentially his way of trying to get the voters that he believes will support him to vote, and that's it? Final full stop?
No, it's slightly different. The Save America Act is about requiring certain forms of identification to vote, and it's part of a larger campaign. In Houston, Texas, the third or fourth largest, I guess fourth largest city in America, there's a single location where you can drop off ballots, and you can only drop off ballots of people in the car dropping them off. It is physically impossible for the roughly 4 million people in that community to vote using that system. It is designed to make sure that the vote is suppressed among people they believe are their opponents. And it may backfire because the SAVE Act requires women who got married and changed their name to their husband's name to recertify their eligibility to vote. Well, that tends to be Republican women who did that, not Democrats. Women who are Democrats are much more likely to keep their own name separate from their husband. But voter suppression has been a tactic of the American Republican Party now for most of my lifetime, and there's a whole host of tactics. Trump's former White House advisor, Steve Bannon, has said that he expects that there will be ICE agents, the ones who are grabbing people off the street with masks on their faces. There will be ICE agents at polling places. Others have said we're going to have the military at polling places, which is under the U.S. law absolutely illegal. They have to be at least 1,000 feet away. But we should expect that there will be serious efforts to intimidate voters in various jurisdictions and to adopt rules like the one in Dodge City, Kansas, the real central mythical town of the American West and the Cowboys, where there was a single polling place. If you didn't have a car, you had to ride a bus for an hour. You then had to walk for an hour. Then you had to get to the poll before it closed. You had to walk back an hour, and then you take a bus ride for an hour in order to vote. And that was clearly designed to limit voting by Hispanics, who are a significant share of the population in Dodge City, Kansas.
So correct me if I'm wrong, if I can essentially summarize all that in one sentence. Trump is essentially using force to filter out the voters that he wants to vote for him so that he can succeed and still be president, correct?
Mostly legal tricks followed by force. We won't know for sure about force until the actual election day. But yes, you got it, the right concept there, Roshan.
Okay, thank you so much for your time, sir. Much appreciated. Next up, Russian President Vladimir Putin has blamed Western countries for the Ukrainian crisis, saying it arose from support for the coup in Kyiv and subsequent events in Crimea and the Donbass region. Putin also said that the current turmoil in Ukraine is a systemic mistake by Western countries and stressed that Russia is not responsible for these actions. He added that Western nations are now reaping what they sowed and warned that the crisis has pushed global energy markets to the limit. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.